Yeah, I don't,
burden for the guy sitting in the
I
audience.
probably should clarify that. I don't think the 7 million gets rid of all of it, but it's what is feasible. Like you said, 2 miles a year is probably not feasible.
I was just doing the math,
Yep.
that's all I was doing. You know, if you can do a mile, I think we'd be in pretty good shape. You know, it might be in different parts of the area and stuff like that, because we obviously have breaks in different parts, but,
Yep.
okay. Okay.
Slide 7 is your 5-year CIP. This is what we're recommending over the next 5 years. Looking at replacing pumps 1 and 4 at the treatment plant just because of their age, although that's not an immediate thing that needs to be done. We have that programmed out in the 5th year. We are recommending we move forward with the Well 14 project in order to meet those summertime peaks and have good reliability with the raw water supply. And then the 4-inch main replacement, $500,000 that you could use with your street projects for a 4-inch main replacement. So that is, I'd say, the Cliff Notes version of most of the report, aside from hardness reduction, which we'll go into next. Are there any other questions at this point?
So this is a recommendation, but it's basically a hard recommendation, we gotta do it.
The 5-year CIP? I would say the well, definitely. I think Rich would agree. It's time to get well 14 built. Well 7 is pretty much not usable anymore. Well 6 is over, I think, 60 years old. And I think Rich felt like if he lost another one of his wells on that peak day, it'd be tough to meet the demand.
Okay. So it's kind of a required CIP. We haven't voted on it yet.
Right.
It's kind of required.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, then moving into hardness reduction. So when we're talking about hardness reduction, what we're talking about is reducing the hardness in the city's water by adding additional treatment at the water plant. Why are we talking about this? The primary reason is it's related to your wastewater permit. There's been new water quality regulations passed through the Clean Water Act, and one of those criteria is chlorides. Chlorides above a certain concentration are toxic to aquatic life in the stream. The city has to meet these new limits by November 1st of 2023. The limit you have to meet is 460 milligrams per liter. The testing that the wastewater plant has done currently they're over 800 milligrams per liter, so almost double what the limit is going to be.
Time out. This is a state law or federal law?
Federal law that's
By the DNR.
enforced by the DNR. And you're not alone. I mean, there's a lot of communities dealing with this chloride issue.
Okay, let's take a break
Yeah.
for just a second.
Sure.
And let's divert to what Jason knows I'm gonna ask. We have been talking about how our hardness is graded, where it's graded at in the river. Where they take this reading, this 800, because I'm unhappy with where the testing actually takes place, because I believe we're getting screwed. There's no better way to put it. So we talked about putting a new test station in cooperation with the DNR somewhere on or about Highway 75 old DOT building, okay? Where are we at in that?
Nowhere other than, it is a for sure thing we can do it. It's just I don't have a price for it yet. I don't have a price.
You gave me an estimate a while back, that there was a number thrown out there.
Yeah, I don't remember what that was, but that was,
60 grand, I thought.
that might be, I don't even know if it was that much. I thought it was so insignificant, the price, that
It was a no-brainer.
yeah.
I agree, but that's my whole point. How can we even look at going further into hardness reduction until we know we're getting an accurate, because they don't measure anything north of Lamar's.
Well, yeah, I want to clarify, I mean, there is, I'll give a little background. Yes, we're going to be required to do something because of our wastewater permit. okay, so the outflow, what we're dumping into the river, there are requirements, and he's pointed out that there's gonna be limits, and right now, we're way over those limits. Okay, so we need to address that whole situation. All McClure is doing is, when we constructed that water plant out there, it was with the thought in mind that eventually we may do lime softening, okay? So there was a cost to that in the last plan update of 2012, okay? So when the wastewater permit came out, the logical thing to do, knowing that we were gonna have to address it, so we either have to address it at the water end, or we're gonna have to address it at the wastewater end. So that's where they were asked to update, since it was done in 2012, update your estimate of doing the hardness reduction at the water end. What we won't know for, I don't know the exact time, it might be a year, because it's in our, once we got the permit, we had to submit a plan to the DNR on how we're gonna address all of these issues, okay? And that all had a time frame. So at the wastewater end, that is Bolton and Mink, okay? So at some point, they're gonna have to determine the cost of solving this problem at the wastewater end. So that's not time yet. That might be a year out. So once we have those two things, then we can compare what is the logical way to solve it. So all McClure is doing is just updating that plan and giving us fresh numbers on what it would be out there. So we're not asking to approve any hardness reduction project. It's just they're updating the numbers. So.
And I was just trying to bring it up, simply saying there's more to the equation than just a test that's happened right now. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, so he's just gonna give an overview of what they've come up with, that may have changed or updated in the last 7, 8 years.
To your point, I mean, we do a lot of wastewater work too. If there's anything you can do to get higher limits, that's great. And there may be some things that Bolton and Mink could work with you on to try and get higher limits. I don't think there'd be any way to get down to, what the DNR is, or but that's something to certainly, I think, consider.
Yeah, so what you brought up, Clark, I mean, with a more accurate, maybe a more accurate, reliable reading might change, what our current restrictions are. I mean, they may loosen up. Hopefully they don't get worse, but I mean, they may change with a more accurate reading.
Sure.
Matt, before you go on, I do have a question. I'm a little
Sure.
confused on this
Yep.
whole thing, to be very honest with you. But you're working on the softness side?
Yes.
of the water?
Dealing with it on solving the problem, or potentially solving the problem on the front end
And that's up here at the water.
at the water plant. Yep.
We also are working on a project out at the wastewater end of it. Am I right?
Bolton and Mink.
That's Bolton and Mink.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's quite a project coming down the road, as I understand it. My question is, we're not getting caught between two engineers here on the same topic. We're paying
I don't believe
Bolton
so.
Mink one, we're paying you another, and are we going after the same thing?
Well,
Oh, no.
What we've been discussing at the committee level is the fact that it's nice to find some way to reduce that amount of sodium that's going into the river.
I agree with that.
But we're gonna have to do it either way, and the test upstream is not going to affect what is going out the wastewater. That's the one that's gonna kick things into motion, in my opinion. But you
We
can't.
go back to the softness of
That you can't reduce continue to push that much out to wastewater. And there's no economical way to pull the sodium out of the wastewater material once it's gone through the plant and back to the river.
Do we know, what is the level of raw water, the level of,
Chlorides?
coming
it's-
in? Before before
It's
anything
less
happens.
than 5 milligrams per liter. There's hardly any chlorides in the water, the drinking water.
Okay.
So if you,
So
maybe
if
we'll-
everybody understand what that means, I mean, we're taking it out of the ground, it has minimal hardness to it. Hardness is coming from
yeah.
within the community.
So 90+% of the chlorides in the wastewater come from the salt that's used in water softening systems. Okay? So that, the salt comes from all those bags of salt that all the homes and businesses have. If we can reduce the hardness in the water, that means it's less salt you have to put in your water softener. That's how we reduce the salt in the wastewater. Does that make sense? Because when,
Until you say 12 million.
well, it'll be a lot more expensive at the wastewater plant, I think.
It's where the rubber meets the road, and whether you have to explain it to the people, no
Yep.
different than we had to about an
Yeah,
hour
I-
ago, is that we've got to go and say, okay, you're not gonna have 6 bags of salt this year. How many bags of salt do you have now? 30. You're gonna have 24 when you have the new system. So you're gonna save that, even though we're gonna cost you $2 more a month, you're gonna save $12 in salt.
Yep.
We gotta, and I saw
You
some of it
you
in
looked
here.
ahead, yeah, you want to jump to that?
But yeah, I think that's the part
Sure.
that we've got to sell
Yeah,
people on.
I mean-
But I think Clark's comment is, I'm not sure we're at 800 on the discharge. Maybe we're only at 600 on a discharge if you do a test where it's supposed to be tested. So then we might only have to reduce it to 460 from 600 versus 800 to 460. So it might not be as big a process, as complicated a system. But, yeah, we can go to that
Yeah.
sheet. The last question I got for you though, is there any city that's got 10,000 people or more that's gonna meet this thing in 2023? Good answer.
Yeah.
I don't think-
Yes, there are. There are, the limits that people get depend on how big of a stream they discharge into. So, City of Sioux City discharges into the Missouri River. They have a much lower limit because they get a lot more dilution
But that's-
credit.
but that's bullshit.
So-
Excuse me.
I can tell you the city of Fort Dodge is having to do this very same thing.
Right.
Because they can't meet their limits.
So it's
And-
based upon targeted enforcement because of where you have to discharge your waste. The
Yes,
smaller
they-
streams,
Yeah,
the smaller rivers are gonna, and the bigger towns on the smaller places are gonna.
because they're
have
trying to
bigger
protect, the aquatic life in
We
that
don't
stream.
have
Yep.
aquatic life
But-
in Willow Creek, I'm sorry.
But the other thing too, that comes into play is that the calculations are taken, as I understand it, at the extreme low levels of the Florida River, which it hasn't even been even close to for the last 5 years. So the calculations are based on this trickle of a river. So these numbers are skewed coming at us. I don't like this system at all, but you move on,
Yep,
because I'm
sure.
not trying to.
No, I'm with you. I mean, that's just how, that's how the Clean Water Act is enforced. They look at the lowest stream flow.
You're just the messenger. but
I'm just the
we're
messenger,
still-
yeah.
We're still shooting him.
But let me ask
So
you
He
this.
doesn't work for the DNR.
And I know you're on the water supply side, not, you said you do
Right.
sewer work too.
Sure.
Isn't there a mechanism, a baffle of some sort, basically a distribution pipe with a bunch of holes drilled in it, where you shoot your excess water into the river and it goes like this and goes out rather than like this and goes out? So it's not
Yeah.
concentrated, it's more
It's called a
dispersed.
diffuser.
Okay.
Diffuser, yeah. I'm not sure if the DNR still approves those. We haven't done one in probably 15 years. I'm not saying they don't, but
Okay.
you should ask Bolton Mink
Okay,
if that's an option.
okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So I guess, in summary, we looked at 2 options to reduce the hardness. We looked at lime softening, and we looked at reverse osmosis. Yes, the plant that we designed in 2003 was kind of set up to do lime softening. Those costs have gone up. The cost of reverse osmosis since 2003 has gone down quite a bit. Now, we could implement reverse osmosis at your current plant just as seamlessly as we could lime softening, so I don't see that as an issue. As Rex mentioned, because he flipped ahead, the capital cost to do that, we're estimating is just shy of $13 million to build that RO plant, okay? In addition, it's an extra $338,000 a year in extra operational cost to run that facility. One of the benefits reverse osmosis would have is it's not going to just take out the hardness, it'll take out a lot of other impurities that are in the water. Another benefit over lime softening, in my opinion.
And we won't have the mess you have with lime softening.
Right. Lime softening creates a lot of lime sludge that has to be hauled away, land applied on a yearly basis, and it's kind of an operator nightmare, honestly, dealing with it. So are there other options? Removing chlorides at the wastewater plant. That's not what we've been hired to do, but that is another option. My guess is it would cost more. Pretty sure it'll cost more, and there's really no benefit to your customers. Yes, you should look at ways to get higher limits, so that's something Bolton and Mink can work with you on. The second thing is some people say, well, can we put in these high efficiency water softeners that reduce salt? Yes, you can. Most of the literature out there says you can reduce your salt usage by maybe 45%. I don't think that's enough to meet the limit, the current limit. I think you'd have to be over 60%. Plus the cost to get one of those high efficiency units fully installed, probably around $3,500. So if you had each of your 4,000 some customers do that, times $3,500, that's over $14 million in cost to put in high efficiency units. That's more than, softening or reducing the hardness in bulk at the water plant. So I'm on slide.
0% loan state for this?
You can get
one of those loans?
You can get a 30-year financing at 3%.
Oh,
Through
zero.
the state.
I said zero. One of
Can't,
those-
and
one of
the
those grants
bankers
that-
still got to make their money
No,
somehow.
it wasn't through a banker though. The state was doing some of those put aside money because they wanted people to make their water better. We got one of those when we did, and I think the previous one.
That was principal forgiveness. Yeah, that was kind of part of the stimulus
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, we don't have the stimulus no more.
They're not doing the principal forgiveness anymore. I think you use that for the water meter replacement. Yeah.
Well, see,
Keep trying.
you don't like coming here because we.
Oh no, I love coming here. I'll go to slide 14. We did a preliminary assessment of what would water rates have to be to pay for the $13 million project and the additional annual O&M. So that graph on slide 14 shows your current water rates for an average customer who uses 6,000 gallons a month, pays just over $25 a month. We looked at two different scenarios. We said was scenario one, we'll split the cost 50-50 between the high users and all the residences, because it's a roughly 50-50 split where the chlorides come from. The second scenario is we'll split the cost 60-40, 60% to the high users, 40% to the residences, since the high users use 60% of the water. Okay? So under scenario two, which has less impact to the homeowners, rates would have to go up about $7 a month to pay for the project. Under scenario one, it would go up to $35 a month, so not quite a $10 a month increase. Okay? This chart also compares your rates to a cross-section of communities across Iowa. So you can see even with those increases, you're still kind of middle of the pack, which I think is good. Fort Dodge, they're having to deal with this very same problem. Their rates are going to be just over $42 a month in 2020. So we tried to keep the cost to the minimum user between $5 and $7 a month, because there are some cost savings in salt. So we tried to keep to that minimum user who only uses 2,000 gallons a month. Whatever the increase would be, you'll see an offset in how much salt you have to purchase. And then if you flip to the next slide, there are other cost savings related to softer water. On a 30-year life cycle cost, and this isn't McClure numbers, this comes out of this study that's been looked at. they say $13 to $19 a month in potential savings from softeners will last longer, your dishwasher works better, your water heater works better, all these things, your appliances work better with reduced hardness in the water. So that's another benefit that you can see. What I want to be clear about today is we're not talking about producing soft water. We're talking about reducing the hardness from like 35 grains down to 14. That's like a 60% reduction. At 14 grains, that's still considered hard water. So people would still want to have their softeners to provide the water softness that they're used to. So if the plumbers call you or Culligan calls you and says, hey, why are you looking at this? We're not going to be producing soft water under these options. We're just reducing the hardness so that in turn your customers would have less salt they have to purchase.
And I'll just let you know, because eventually every customer or property is going to receive it in the mail, is as part of the wastewater and that plan that was given to the DNR, one of the requirements is that we send out a survey to gather information from properties as to what type of water softener you have, just to, we're going to send that out probably within the next month. So we'll know how many are on time, how many are on actual usage. So just so you know.
Okay, in summary, I'm on slide 16. Our recommended next steps is, the first one is proceed with bidding and constructing well 14. We'd like to get that well constructed this year. So we have the design done. We just need to move forward with bidding. The second thing is, if you want to continue down this reverse osmosis path, we'd have to conduct a pilot study. The state would require a 90-day pilot study to demonstrate that the reverse osmosis system would work. We would also get some very valuable design information from doing that pilot study. The third step would be submitting our report and possible funding applications to the state. The next round is due by April 1st. That's for that low interest loan that I was talking about.